And our third main topic today gets submitted to us by Victor, who writes, a name so good he had to say it 3 times. Victor writes, "Hey, John, I'm very excited for Eternals and already have my tickets for Saturday. But as of this time, me writing this, it's fallen to just 53% on Rotten Tomatoes. It was already the lowest MCU rated film ever. But now it might actually end up being their first negatively reviewed movie if this slide continues. Without spoilers, what would you say is the one thing about the movie that is leading to this? Thanks." All right. Thanks a lot for sending that in, man. Appreciate that. And yeah, man, listen, I was telling you guys a little bit earlier, I have already gone to see Eternals now 3 times. I even drove an hour last night. Actually, last I checked, it was 53. Let's see if it's gone down anymore. Eternals, Rotten Tomatoes. Let's see where it's at now. It was at 53 last night. Has it dropped further? No, it's still at 53. So it's at 53%, still on Rotten Tomatoes. So there you have it. I went to go see it. I liked it. And you guys know, as I've been talking about this from the very first screening I have of it, I said, I really liked it, but I don't know how people are going to react to this movie. Like when I came out of Shang-Chi, you guys remember this. When I came out of Shang-Chi, I was like, you're going to love this movie. You are going to love this movie. Like I was like very enthusiastic about that. I felt very confident about that. I'm like, people are going to love this. I mean, obviously no movie has everybody love it, but I was so confident that everybody was going to love Shang-Chi the moment I saw that movie. And sure enough, most people did. But when I came out of Eternals, I'm like, I really liked it. I mean, it's vast. It incredibly expands the universe of the MCU. It asks grand, philosophical, even religious questions, wonderful characters, all that kind of stuff. I said, but here's the thing. I don't know how other people are going to respond to this. I don't know how people are going to feel about this. And I've said in recent days, I'm not going to be surprised at all if Eternals ends up with a 90% audience rating. Right now, obviously, there's no audience rating because the film hasn't opened yet. But once the audience rating starts coming out, I will not be surprised in the least if it ends up having a 90+% audience rating, because it's that kind of movie. But I also said I'm also not going to be surprised if it's like a 60% or lower audience rating, because it's that kind of movie. Now, whenever a highly anticipated movie, like an MCU movie in Eternals, well, this is really the first time this has happened, but whenever a highly anticipated movie comes out and the critic scores end up being low, the one question everybody wants to ask is, what happened? What went wrong? Where was the magic bullet? What's the one thing? What was the one mistake that has led to this? That has led to not only it being the lowest rated Marvel film of all time, but with the trajectory it's on and at the pace it's going at, it could end up being not just the lowest rated Marvel film of all time, it could end up being the first Marvel movie that ends, I mean, there have been other Marvel projects that have been negatively reviewed, like under 50%, but this would be the first MCU movie to be under 50%. Now, whenever it comes up, I'm always quick to point out, right? Like you guys know, I'm always quick to point out, hey, yeah, it's the lowest one, but hey, it's still the majority of the critics like this movie. That's true. At 53%, that means the majority of critics who are seeing this movie like it. But that majority is sliding. That majority is shrinking. That majority is smaller today than it was yesterday, because yesterday it was at 56%. Today it's at 53. You know, somebody wrote in and asked me the other day, you know, John, I mean, it's only at whatever it was at the time. It's only at 59%, whatever, but it could go up. There's lots more reviews to come. I said, yeah, but there's already about 100 reviews. So it's not going to change too terribly drastically. Like once you get about 100 reviews, you get a general sense of what the consensus is. So you're not going to get a terribly big difference between 100 reviews and 500 reviews. it'll roughly be the same. But it's dropped even more than I thought would out of that range. It's down 53%. If this trend continues, if it continues dropping like 2% a day, which it may not, but we're actually going to end up with a Marvel film that is not only the lowest critically rated one, it's going to be the first one ever that the majority of critics disliked it. Right now, and let's be clear, as of this moment, the majority of critics are still on the positive side. It has the majority of critics. 53% positive, 47% negative. It's still on the positive side. But it's not out of the realm of imagination that within the next couple of days, that could be below 50%. Just with the trend, because it was at like 60%, then it was like 58%, then 56%. Now it's 53% as more and more, and there's still probably another 100 reviews to come in. So they asked the question, what was it? What's the magic bullet? What's the thing that's causing this? I have a couple of ideas, but the first thing that has to be said is this. There is no one magic bullet. There's no one magic bullet. There is no one thing that's causing this, okay? I think there's probably a number of factors that are going. I think there's a number of things in this film that may strike certain critics in a negative way or make certain critics not enjoy it, but it's no one thing. There's no one thing. Some people are saying, it's because the expectations were too high coming out of Shang-Chi. Or some people are saying, it's just because they're getting tired of Marvel movies. Well, no. Don't make excuses. Don't make excuses. Somebody else doesn't like it. It's just that. This has nothing to do with the critics. Has nothing to do with them. It has to do with the movie itself. It always does. People not liking Man of Steel has nothing to do. It still breaks my heart when I say that. But it has nothing to do with the critics. It has to do with the movie. As magnificent as I personally think it is. Don't you worry, Henry. I still got your back. You're still my boy. All right. Anyway. So it's about the movie. It's not about the critics. I know everybody likes to make excuses and it makes them feel better when they say, well, it's just their fault that they don't like it. I know we love making excuses. We love to make it about the other person, but it's not. It's about the movie. Because even I, who really enjoy this movie, I've gone to see it 3 times. I'm going to go see it a 4th time on Thursday. I really like this movie. But even I, coming out of it, said, I don't know how other people are going to feel about it. And I believe there are a couple of things. I think there are a couple of things. Number one, to me, villains. And specifically, we're talking about the deviants. The deviants in this film, while I personally like the look of them very much, I've seen some people say, the CGI doesn't look good. I don't know what you're looking at because I think the CGI looks fantastic. Except, I will point this out. In one of the post-credit scenes, there is a bit of CGI, and you will know exactly what I'm talking about once you see it. There is a bit of CGI that I swear to God has come right out of 2005. Like this really, really questionable CGI that is in one of the post-credit scenes. We'll talk about that more specifically on Sunday when we do our open spoiler discussion for Eternals. By the way, don't forget, guys, Sunday, open spoiler discussion for Eternals. Hope you'll be there to join us. Anyway, but other than that, I actually think the CGI in this movie is exceptionally good. It's not the look of the deviants. It's just the nature of the character of the deviants. And I can't go into specifics because I don't want to give any spoilers away. But I will say this. I felt like with Thanos, I know it's not fair to point to like the greatest villain they've ever had in the MCU, but let's point at Thanos for a second. With Thanos, we understood Thanos. He had motivation. He had narrative weight to him. He had purpose. There's a lot of these different elements that doesn't just make a good villain, but makes a good character in a movie, right? The deviants in Eternals are like, ooh, monsters, bad. I mean, that's pretty much, ooh, monsters, bad. Oh, that thing's got lots of tentacles and teeth. Monster, bad. Monster, bad, ladies and gentlemen. Teach your children anything, monster, bad. And that seems to be the philosophy of Eternals. Now, again, I say that it's in the midst of what I think is a profoundly huge, beautiful, wide scope. I love the characters and their dynamics. I particularly love Kumail Nanjiani in this movie. I really did. But in all that, there's the deviance. I never really got on board, nor did the movie really ever give any weight to why the deviance or how the deviance. And even as you start to learn a little bit more about them, it just seems like rather they're just dropping some random facts in the movie without giving any weight to it. And because of that, as an audience member, you never really feel the weight of these villains or what they're supposed to be and represent. Even as they start to change throughout the movie, you don't care because their change doesn't make a lot of sense. At any rate, number one, the villains. I think they dropped the ball at the deviance. And that could be one of the factors why some people watching it, particularly people who have sensibilities, that the villain of the film, of any film, goes a long way to how good or bad the film is. And if you're one of those types of people, Eternals is going to be a struggle for you. Because I don't think they did a very good job with it. Okay, so that's one thing. The second thing that did not work negatively for me, but I can see it working negatively for a lot of people, is it is a radical change of direction in Marvel kind of storytelling. Now, you hear me praising this movie a lot from a perspective of glorious, fantastic inter-character relationships and dynamics, and expanding the cinematic universe in a way we never thought the MCU would go. Like when we first watched Tony Stark crawling out of a cave and he cobbled together some armor with a flamethrower, we never thought we would come across the creator of the universe, Arishem, the Celestial, as big as the planet himself. It makes everything else in the MCU feel rather small and insignificant. And here's the thing, and I'm not really spoiling anything because this is the very first thing that happens. The very first thing that happens, the screen goes dark, the movie's about to start. The very first thing that happens is some text scrolls on screen. So I'll tell you this is what you read in the first couple of seconds. Basically, it reorganizes our entire understanding of the Marvel universe, or of the universe itself that the Marvel movies take place in. Because the movie starts with text that lets us know, hey, there's these things, Celestials, and Arishem, the Prime Celestial, yeah, he created the universe. He created our sun, he created the earth, he created our entire universe. And that is the type of, what's the word I'm looking for? That's the type of thing that I don't think audiences go into a Marvel cinematic, like we just saw Shang-Chi, right? Woo! Fight on a bus! Dude with the sword arm! Chop, chop, chop! It's great! We're chopping things up with that sword arm! Chopping the pole in half, chopping the bus in half, chop, chop, chop! In the beginning, there was Arishem the Celestial, who created our universe and all life in it. It's a radical departure from what we've come to expect, like even in Guardians of the Galaxy, which expands how far out the story goes, but this is different. Like this is a totally different beginning to trying to do a movie like this. And you could physically feel, for me, in the theater, like at least at the premiere, when I was at the premiere and those first words start, you could physically feel in the air a bunch of people feel uncomfortable. I don't think it's because of religious beliefs or anything like that. I think it was because of, this is not how we expect a Marvel movie to start. We're talking about creators and the genesis of the universe and how all life started and this character. It made everything else feel really small instantly. Like I'm sitting there in the premiere thinking, woo, so Infinity War and Endgame were kind of insignificant and pointless. We're talking about the creator of the universe now. A dude who was around before the Infinity Stones. So there's a heaviness to it as well, right? So that's one of the other things that I think. So I think you got from what I consider to be poor villains, probably hit a lot of people in a way. If the villains don't work, there's a lot of people that, hey, if the villains don't work, the movie doesn't work. And I think that's true for a lot of film fans and some film critics. I think that's true too. I think the startling and jarring change of direction for an MCU film like this one has, I think threw a lot of people off. I really do. And listen, I have seen movies that something happens in like the first 15 minutes of the movie that just got the movie off to a very jarring start for me, and I wasn't able to get back into the movie afterwards. That's happened to me. I'm sure it's happened to you on some films too. And I think maybe for some people, that movie did that for some people. So I think that's another thing there. And I'm going to say this. I don't know how much this is true of things. You know what? Let me say this isn't a third reason. Let me just throw this out there and acknowledge this is something some people are talking about. The fact of the matter is, this movie has a gay character in it. Has a gay character in it. And I've seen some people have the conversation, and I'm not saying I agree, nor am I saying I disagree. I'm just pointing out that you guys have seen these conversations, that there are maybe some people that aren't so happy that there's a gay character in the movie. I mean, but whether that has any impact at all on the fact that Eternals has a 53% right now, I'm not saying it does. I'm not saying it doesn't. All right. I'm just throwing that out there. That is something people are talking about. But these larger dynamics, these larger philosophical questions, huge, just cinematic issues of having a poor villain. Those are the things that led me to coming out of the theater and saying, I don't know how other people are going to respond to this movie. I liked it a lot. Not nearly as much as Shang-Chi. It's not the best Marvel movie ever made that, you know, some people at Disney maybe thought it was going to be. Like we've talked on the show, we've heard from people at Disney who say, you know, around Disney, we think Eternals is the best film we've ever made. And maybe that's true. Maybe they think that. I certainly don't. But again, I think it's a very good movie. I've seen it 3 times. I'm going to go see it a 4th. But these are the reasons to me that exist within the movie itself that I think might lead to the notion that it just didn't work for a lot of other people. And again, that's why I'm going to be very, very curious to see how well or how poorly the audience score on this movie ends up being. And I'm telling you what, guys, like when I saw Shang-Chi, obviously I was very excited to talk about it in a spoiler discussion. I cannot remember the last time I have been this excited to do a spoiler discussion than on Sunday for Eternals, because there's so much in there to talk about the things that some people are loving and some people aren't liking. Like I'm seeing debates and arguments between people about one issue in a movie, and people saying, oh yeah, that's what makes a movie awesome. And other people saying, no, that's what makes a movie suck. And it's like, they're talking about the same thing. It's crazy. So I cannot wait until Sunday to talk to you guys about it in an open spoiler environment, just to hear from you guys and what worked and what didn't work for you and how it hit you. For me, I think the movie's great. The character work, the dynamics, the scope, all these things worked for me. It's not for some other people. It's going to be interesting to see. Anyway, the question is for you guys. What do you think? Right now, Eternals is sitting at 53%, which still means it's a positively reviewed movie. It still means the majority like it, but it's heading in the wrong direction, and it could end up being the first badly reviewed movie of the MCU. Do you think it'll go under that 50% threshold? Do you think it's going to hold where it is? Have you seen it yet? I know there have been some fan screenings. If so, did you like it? Did you not? Whatever you guys are thinking, jump down into the comment section below and let us know your thoughts.